Hello, so we are going to cover in this tutorial two ways to push a existing project to an empty repository. I'm going to do it via the UI in Pycharm, and then we're going to do it again via terminal. So right now I already have a repository set up. I've named it example repository, but there are absolutely no files in it. For a little bit of context, right now I have Pycharm downloaded, I have Git downloaded and installed, and so all that remains to do or to be done is I'm going to create a new Django project. So I'm going to name my Django project, let's say example project one, right? I'm going to select create. It may take a second as it sets up everything and installs Django. But I think it's worth noting a couple of interesting things about your uh, the moment you open it. First of all, when you open it, you're going to observe that down in the bottom left-hand corner of your window, there is a very interesting symbol here, and it says version control. So what you do is you click on it, it looks like a bit of a branch, and we observe that it's not currently tracking changes to our code. There's a couple of reasons. First of all, maybe you don't have, automatically set up a Git repo or version control enabled for your Pycharm. That's perfectly fine if you don't. And secondly, we also haven't set up what's known as a remote origin for it. That is, all of the changes that you're doing are only going to be made locally on your computer, and also they aren't being saved elsewhere, say on the clouds, where maybe your teammates can access the code. So first of all, what we're going to do is we are going to make sure that it's tracking changes to the code. That is, it is giving us a timeline of the changes that we make. So I'm going to select create Git repository. This is my example project one project. So I'm going to select open, and it creates it for me. Now, from there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I set up a remote origin. To do that, I'm going to direct your attention to the top of the screen. We have a menu bar here. It says Pycharm, File, Edit, View, and all the way to the right, we have Git. I'm going to select Git. It's going to give me a drop-down menu. And towards the bottom, there is an option that says Manage Remotes. Here, I'm going to click on Remotes. Then we observe here that my list of Git remotes is currently empty. This should be the list of the remote repositories that you're going to connect your project to. And so to add a new one, I'm going to select the plus button, which is add, observe its name is origin, and go back to my browser. In my browser, I have the example repository that's currently empty pulled up, and I am going to make sure that I copy the HTTPS URL for my Git repository. If you're not sure what it is, generally the format, depending on what type of GitHub you're using, it might be github.gotech or .edu. In this case, it's HTTPS and then GitHub and then my .com/my username/ the name of the repository .git. So I am going to go ahead and copy it, and then I'm going to paste it in the URL option in Pycharm. Once I've done that, I'm not going to change anything else. I'm going to select OK, and then OK again. And then we're going to take a look back at this. Now that I've set a upstream or a remote repository and I've connected it to my local project, it remains to actually commit and push the changes that I have here. Because right now, this entire repository is empty. You might have a README file in your repository. That's perfectly fine. So we're going to make sure that we commit those changes and then we push them so that they show up here in the browser for all your teammates to also use and maybe clone to your desktop. Here it says no changes are committed, so I'm going to select commit local changes. I'm going to pull down this so you can see it a little bit better. And observe here that I have a space in the bottom. This is a place where I can type some message. That's my commit message. Here at the top, it's labeled changes. I can actually expand this drop-down file, and I can see that these are all of the files right now that are quote-unquote unversioned. That is, they aren't quite yet being tracked by Git, both on my desktop and also remotely. So I'm going to select all of them. And just to be certain, I'm going to make sure I don't have, say, a conda environment, VM environment that's included in there, or the idea of a directory anywhere in there. It doesn't seem like that's the case. So I know that I can commit all of these files and push them to the repository. I'm going to add a commit message. I'm going to say first commit and push with an exclamation point. And then I'm going to select the option commit and push. All right. And it's going to say, hey, is it okay if we push these commits from the origin all the way up to main? And then I'm going to select push. All right, here I can see that I've successfully committed and pushed the files, and that has been pushed to origin/main. Recall, we named origin as the name of our remote repository, which means that if I go back to my browser and then I refresh the page, I can actually see the corresponding files that are on here. For example, my example project files here, and now you can go and have one of your teammates clone this repository to their local files as well. That's how you do it using the UI. And there's a second way to do it, which is by using your terminal. In this case, we're going to use a set of commands. If you're unfamiliar with terminal, don't worry. This can be useful if you're maybe not using Pycharm or something quite as user-friendly. But first of all, to do that, I'm going to create a new repository. So I'm going to go back to my home page, and I'm going to name it example repository 2. Okay, that's a new repository, and create it. And now I have, again, an empty repository. I'm going to go back to Pycharm, and I am going to create a new project using Django, and I will name it example project 2. Same exact steps as before. I am just attempting to reset the environment. All right, now that I have my project created, what remains is that we want to figure out a way to commit all of our changes in our files and then set that upstream or that remote origin. Here on the left hand side of the screen, we have terminal. Here it's a little bit above our version control symbol. It's kind of like a box with a little enter place. I'm going to click on it, and it's actually going to open a window at the bottom here. This is my terminal. You may be more familiar with it if maybe you use it just separately from Pycharm. That's perfectly fine. What I'm going to do now is I am going to first initialize a local Git repository. To do that, I'm going to do git init and then press enter, all lowercase in one space. There we go. We have initialized an empty Git repository in this project, right? Now observe here that this blue text here tells me where I am in my files. You can use terminal to navigate through all the files saved in your system. And so this path here tells me that right now I can access the files under example project 2. And indeed, that's what we see here. Now that I've initialized my repository, you can see that these are indeed the files we're looking at. And so I want to make sure that I add all of these files here to a commit. Just as before with the UI, we're going to do git add and go to the period, which is all of the files here. Press enter. And then I'm going to do git commit, right? So I am actually going to commit the files I just staged. I'm going to say first commit and push, same message as before. I'm going to put the commit message in double quotes. Be a little bit careful, make sure they are, otherwise your terminal will be a little bit confused. And then I'm going to press enter. Oops. Alrighty. Now that it has committed all of these files, it remains now to make sure that we have a remote origin. And so to do that, I'm going to do git remote add origin, and then I'm going to go back to my browser. We're going to still copy this URL that we have here, or this HTTPS link for my repository. I'm going to paste it. Press enter. Now that I've added the origin, I can actually push the changes to the repository. So I'm going to do git push. And for the first time only, I'm going to add 2 extra flags, -u space -f. And then I am going to make sure that I'm pushing to the origin, right, which is git remote add origin. That is my remote repository. And then I'm going to do main. Now, this is where I have to be a little bit careful. So some of the online resources will tell you to do git push -u -f origin master. To my knowledge, I think Git has recently updated that a little bit. And so your main branch here is no longer called master, it's now called main. Or your default branch is no longer called master, it's now called main. And so if you push it to master, you'll be creating a new branch on your repository that has a completely separate commit history from your default branch in your repository, and that will create some additional issues. If that happens though, and you accidentally do git push -u -f origin master, that's okay. Just let one of the TAs know, we can fix it. And I am going to press enter after this. All right. Now, according to this, I have no existing errors with this, and so I'm going to refresh the page. And as you can see here, indeed, we have pushed and added all of the files that we wanted to from example project 2 onto our repository. So that's the tutorial. That's how you will take your files, your project, your Django project, and push it to an npm repository using these two methods. All right, thanks for listening.